During the premiere of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, despite being completely deaf, Beethoven himself stood in front of the conductor's stand, frantically motioning as if he were playing all the instruments at once. He often skipped parts of the movement while conducting. Audience members criticized his wild nature, saying he was a madman. Some appreciated its bold, out-of-the-box approach, aligning with its emerging romantic music trends, while others thought his deafness had gotten to the best of him. Regardless, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony remains his most well-known work, a legacy that endures to this day. Today, we're exploring Beethoven's most famous symphonies, Symphony No. 9 in D minor, composed in 1824. Ludwig van Beethoven is one of the most revered composers of Western classical music history, living from 1717 to 1827. He marked a significant transition from the classical era to the Romantic era. Beethoven was born into a musical family. Her father was harsh and alcoholic, pushing the young Ludwig to become the next Mozart. At the age of 28, Beethoven began losing his hearing, which eventually led to complete deafness. This profound challenge greatly affected his mental health, which led to depression and anxiety, and increased his solitude from the outside world. He would write letters expressing his inner struggles, questioning the nature of his creativity, and dealing with his strained personal relationships. However, this isolation also fueled his creativity. During this tough period of his life, Beethoven was known for his use of motus, short, recurring musical ideas that were distinctive and varied throughout his works. An example of this is the famous four-note motif in his Fifth Symphony. The short, long one, the da-da-da-da, that one, that creates a prominent theme that was repeated throughout the whole entire symphony. This symphony broke away from traditional patterns. Beethoven placed the scherzo movement before the slow movement and incorporated a chorale final, a first in the history of classical music. It was something the public back then had never seen, and it combined contemporary street entertainment with elaborate fugal techniques all the way from the Baroque era. It was a work years in the making, the piece having been roughly drawn onto sketchbooks by Beethoven. These sketches were difficult to read, they were melodic skeletons, and frequently without clef, key signatures, or accidentals. If you think about Mozart's manuscripts, they look effortless. He could just write them all in one go. The first movement in sonata form begins with a quiet repetition of A to E. So an A to E right here, that is a perfect fifth interval, and it slowly builds. The seemingly major key introduction shifts dramatically to a D and A minor sixth interval. This ends with a powerful D minor chord played forte by all instruments. This creates a sense of tension and expectation, and use of A, E, D. Those are all notes orchestras use for tuning. This could reflect Beethoven's beginning from roots sense. It added a more chaotic element to the symphony. In this movement, he went against traditional scherzos, and traditional scherzos are commonly written in triple time. Even though he kept to the traditional triple time, he would change the punctuation to sound like it was quadruple time. This can be seen as use of repetition, staccato, emphasis on downbeats, and phrasing four notes at a time. Beethoven also incorporated a fugue, a contrapuntal and polyphonic Baroque technique, which involves two or more voices and is shown in the repetition of different pitches as a form of imitation. It shows ties back to vocal music, such as chorales. This is seen in the multiple voices of soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. This use of fugue would serve as foreshadowing to his last and final movement. The third movement is in Adagio molto incantabile, and it translates to like slow and lyrical, and this movement initially starts in B flat major before shifting to D major. The serene melody is primarily caused by the woodwinds and strings. There's like sprinkles of minor key in there that add emotional depth. This movement right here really pulls on the emotion. It's contrasting chaos with order and reflecting melancholic introspection. Finally, the fourth movement begins with a kind of a nod to the first movement's themes before transitioning to the famous Ode to Joy, and I cannot stress how famous this one is. So this chorale final features a slightly modified section of Friedrich Schiller's poem, which is Ode to Joy, and this poem calls for equality, freedom, brotherhood, and hope. Schiller's poem connects to nature and ideal happiness, and that is reflected into Romanticism core ideology, and it's all about embracing oneself. And the poem alludes to Elysium, and this Elysium basically means a place or condition of ideal happiness. it is seen as mythical and magical. However, it also ties back into Beethoven's struggle again with his hearing loss, as his music style had changed. His earlier pieces took on a darker tone, for instance, Symphony No. 5, in which his opening motif is commonly referred to as fate knocking at the door. His life was crowded with grief and fear as his disability impacted his career and mental health greatly. Perhaps his separation from the sound of the busy world prompted him to choose such a text, as he could feel that he was united, that he was not alone after all. The premiere of Symphony No. 9 was met with frantic enthusiasm. Beethoven was unfortunately unable to hear the applause and had to be turned around to see all the audience reactions. This symphony had inspired generations of composers and remains a testament to Beethoven's genius. Despite his profound suffering, Beethoven restored joy in himself and others, proving that joy without peace cannot exist. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode through Beethoven Symphony No. 9. Stay tuned for more exploration into the world of classical music on Symphonic Stories. Keep listening and learning. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye!